Anatomy and Physiology is a course that requires you to understand a lot of information within a short amount of time. I'm going to share how I studied for anatomy and physiology and got an A. I'll share remarks in case no one believes me. Before I share how I studied for anatomy and physiology, or AMP, I will share some background information about me. I am a pre-psychiatric nursing student. Anatomy and Physiology 1 and 2 are courses that are required for me to complete before I apply into the program and get into the program. I took Anatomy and Physiology through a community college online. And yes, it was transferable. I checked before I can take it there. I'll explain the setup of the course. So there are 4 units in each course. So AMP 1 and 2, there are both 4. They both have 4 units. And in each unit, there are 3 to 4 chapters that you have to study within 3 to 4 weeks. And then after those 3 to 4 weeks, you book a theory test and a lab test. So the lab is part of the anatomy and the theory is part of the physiology and a bit of anatomy. Both multiple choice. The theory has 100 multiple choice and the lab has 70 to 100 multiple choice. In P1 and 2, it was asynchronous. So we were given the notes, we were given the PowerPoint presentations, we were given practice quizzes, we were given everything we needed, and all we had to do was just prepare and take the exams. This is the notebook that I used for AMP1, so all my notes are in here for AMP1. I write down all my notes because I find that when I write down my notes, I am less distracted and it actually forces me to think about what I'm writing instead of typing it away. Because if you're able to type fast, if you're used to typing like the proper way, you don't really have to think about the keys because you have muscle memory, so you just type it away. But with writing my notes down manually, I'm actually forced to remember it. So that's one of the ways that that's one of the ways that help me remember information and help me retain information. This is my notes from the tissue system. As you can see, I've underlined the type of tissue and then the structure, function, and location. I wrote it all down. As you can also see, I drew diagrams to help me out. So this is the red blood cell, this is the white blood cell, and then here is the tissues in the bone. So I drew it out, labeled it, and it helps me memorize it too. And then here is the axon. I also drew it out, labeled it, and then here, as you can see, I wrote things that I forgot in the notes, or either I went to the textbook and realized I had to add to it because I didn't understand it, or I just wrote it just in case to memorize it. As here's again, I drew it again. And yeah, and as you can see, these stars, I've highlighted these because these are important things I need to know. It's been mentioned that these are important, so I just put that there. And I also put stars or exclamation marks because I know that those are important, and when I study, I emphasize these more than the other parts that don't have a thing. But either way, everything's important, but I just study these. I spend more time on this. And as you see here, drawing again. And the organ systems. Those were the notes that I took from the textbook and the PowerPoint notes that I was given. There were also practice questions for the theory and the lab part to help you prepare. So I took those, and those help a lot. Taking practice quizzes really help a lot instead of just reading over your notes. I realized that it helped me a lot because first of all, you're used to the layer of the test, and second, you're able to test your knowledge. And once I complete the test, I would look at what I got wrong, and if sometimes it's just a simple mistake, I didn't read the question properly, I didn't pay attention, but other times it's because I mixed some things up. So or I don't understand it completely at all, or I forgot it, and in that case, I'll go back to that part, and I'll look over it, I'll read it over, I'll look at the PowerPoint presentations again. Sometimes I'll watch YouTube videos to have someone else explain it to me because that might help. And sometimes I watch YouTube videos too, like especially Crash Course. I use that a lot. Thank God for Crash Course. I use those YouTube videos a lot, and it helps me a lot to understand some of the topics. And sometimes it works right away, sometimes it doesn't work. I did practice quizzes, practice tests. I did all of those, and I also went on Quizlet, searched up Quizlet questions and stuff like that. That helped me. And Crash Course, I mentioned Crash Course, that helped me a lot. I also created Flash. This was 2 chapters that are these are from 2 chapters that I wrote like about a week ago. So these were the flashcards I made. These were for some of the practice questions that I just couldn't understand, and so I wrote it down. I wrote down the exact question. I wrote down the answer at the back. And the thing is, my professor uses some of the questions, they use some of the same questions in the test, so some of these were actually on the exam that I wrote, so it helped me a lot. Some of them I couldn't understand, so I just memorized it, and sometimes you just can't, you just have to memorize it. So that's what I did. When you don't understand something, just try to memorize it. You might start understanding it in the process, but sometimes you just can't. Drawing diagrams, I drew a lot of diagrams. I sadly didn't keep most of them because I didn't need it anymore, and I didn't even want to see it again, to be honest. Like the heart, drawing the heart helped me a lot. When I was drawing the valves, I was able to name them. Oh, this is the seminal valve, this is the AV valve. And I also thought about what they did, you know, when it's closed, when it's opened, what it does and stuff like that, and the atrium and stuff like that, what they did. This is just one of the diagrams I drew. This is the, wait, is it focused? This is the fluid exchange across the walls of capillaries. So this was from the notes in the textbook. So I just drew it. As I was drawing by myself, I was able to actually think about it because I was drawing it. And as you can see, I wrote down the steps too, so that when I was writing, I also thought about it, and I was also able to process the information at the same time. So drawing diagrams will help a lot. You're not only drawing, but you're also helping yourself retain more information by doing it, instead of just looking it over, because you could be just looking it over and not be retaining any information. But as you draw it, you're actually drawing it out. You're forced to think about it. I also watched a lot of YouTube videos. For example, Crash Course helped me a lot. Oh my god, thank God to Crash Course. I watched a lot of those YouTube videos for because it has like each chapter. It has like every chapter, and it's short, and it's in detail, and it's straight to the point. Whereas the textbook has like a lot of information. The Crash Course is basically just a simplified version of it. Everything is there, and it's just shorter. And I usually watch those as a quick summary before I take before I take the exams, and it has helped me a lot before, like, you know, refreshing your mind, like, oh, maybe I forgot this. Oh, it reminds you of everything last minute. And also the animation is phenomenal. It just helps a lot. Instead of reading over my notes or doing a last practice test, I feel like I'll just be nervous, like anxiety just start. It's not gonna help me at all. But instead of watching a video, I feel more relaxed, and I'm just there watching the video, remembering information, just waiting for it to start. After I look at the notes, I watch YouTube videos, I did the practice quizzes, and I still don't understand a particular subject or a topic or a term, I ask my professor. That's what they're there for. They're also your resource. You use them. I ask, they explain it to me. Sometimes I understand, sometimes I don't, and at that point, I just try to memorize, and that's like my last hope, just memorizing it after I ask. But don't be afraid to ask for help, whether it's a friend, your professor. Don't be afraid to ask for help at all. That is how I studied for AMP 1 and 2. I hope it helped. That's just how I study. You might study differently, but maybe you saw something that I did differently that you might want to try, that might help you out. Go ahead. That's why I made this video, to help. I just want to say that it doesn't really matter it doesn't really matter what your studying technique is. Like, you know, visual learner, you learn by doing. That doesn't really matter. What matters is how deep you understand what you're learning. For example, you're studying the respiratory system and you're a visual learner. You watch YouTube videos, you look at diagrams because you're a visual learner, right? Even though you're using your learning technique, if you're not deeply understanding what you're learning, you won't necessarily learn what you're learning. You're just basically looking over it. You're just looking at your stuff. You're not deeply processing it. You're shallow processing it. Like, you have like a vague understanding instead of a deep understanding. Your goal, no matter how you study, should be deep understanding what you're learning, because at the end of the day, deep understanding is what matters the most. Shallow understanding, you'll probably forget within, like, who knows. But deep understanding, if you deeply understand what you're learning, You will do great on your test, on your exams. The whole point is, no matter what your studying technique is, deeply understanding the material is more important. So the most important thing is to use your resources. Use your resources. Your notes, the textbook, YouTube videos, your professor, friends. Use your resources. They're there for a reason. Even Google. Google is always there. Like, yeah, you can use Google. Everything's there. But use your resources. And don't forget to ask for help. It's okay to ask for help when you don't understand something. It's better you understand something than don't, just because you're afraid to ask. It's better if you ask and understand it. What's the harm in that? Thank you for watching. I hope this video helped you. If you're taking Anatomy Physiology 1 right now, I hope you're doing well. Good luck with the course. And if you're going to take it in the future, good luck to you too. I wish you all the best.